But
Yeah.
there are a few things that I do want to ask that I've come across that I personally found enjoyable that you have done that I could not find much information outside of like maybe some snippets of information I found online that didn't really delve too much into the background here.
Mhm.
So here's the thing that I came across that I saw that I thought was rather interesting and actually pretty funny. And I was surprised that it wasn't expanded a little bit further. But I came across the online show for retail that you had created and that
Mhm.
you also co-wrote along with your friends here, Kevin Walker and Dana. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Danabella Martel.
Donabella, yeah, Donabella.
Thank you. So I saw that show. I saw all 10 episodes, but I was actually quite surprised because it's actually about maybe 2 minutes, maybe if that 3 minutes long with certain episodes. So I was surprised that you guys didn't expand it a little bit further because I was assuming that to me it looked like you guys had shot that entire first 10 episodes in a span of a matter of days is what it looks like to me. So is that kind of more or less the process that you guys were doing for that particular show that you guys were shooting?
Yeah, I mean that's we were really shooting that just specifically for YouTube.
Right.
And so we were just purposefully keeping the episodes pretty short, you know. Um and we had planned on doing a lot more, and then, things just kind of got busy in everybody's different directions, and we weren't able to continue with it. But I mean, it was a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, because this was back in 2014 when this is all uploaded on the because this is on the I forgot right there YouTube channel that I got it from. I think it's the retail YouTube channel. Is that fair, right?
Probably, yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Okay. But I was surprised though because, like I said before, what I actually liked about the show, and I hope you understand where I'm coming from this, is that yes, they were short and sweet, but the punchline was from the beginning right to the very end. So it actually had a really good structure that I thought worked. And the part of me was wondering, like, if there's any point if you guys had decided that if this were to pick up and you were going to continue, were you going to expand on having more time on the show to probably go from 2 minutes maybe to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever the case may be, for you guys to really flesh out some of those jokes that worked well in the first 10 episodes that you thought we can probably continue on with certain storylines that we've had written for each of these episodes that worked very well or was well received, because I could see that some episodes had more viewings than others. So I'm wondering if that was based upon that, that particular episode was what had been more well received, that you may have heard from people that may have seen it that thought that whatever you guys had done for that one particular episode had worked very well, and maybe would have liked to see more of that.
Um, we had lots of ideas to really, yeah, get into all the different characters, and all the different characters were going to be intermingled. So the answer to that question is, yeah, we had a lot of plans for all of them.
Right.
Plans that obviously didn't.
Yeah.
And like I say, it was just kind of it was just a labor of love, really, because we weren't being paid for that, and we weren't, like, we were just. Donabella was in one of my improv groups, and
Right.
so that's how I knew her. And we really, everybody that was in the show kind of collaborated and brought their own ideas. I mean, so it wasn't just me and Kevin and Donabella. Like, everybody really came to the table with some good stuff.
So was it all improvised for the most part, at least when you guys had started to shoot some of those episodes?
No, some of them were fully written and some of them were improvised. So
Okay. So more written and improvised when it came to
I
the
would say
entire
probably about
shoot?
half and half. Yeah, like some
Okay.
of them we just had the idea and we would tell the actors, like, this is the idea, and then everybody would just kind of go. So some of it, I would say about half and half. But yeah, and so then actually, you know, Kevin and I were really trying to get it seen by some people and get it into a network,
Right.
and do it as a real show. And we just never were able to get a lot of traction on it, so it kind of
Died
stopped
down.
as just
Yeah.
as a fun labor of love that we all did.
So when you're looking, I mean, I'm not sure if you go back and revisit some of those episodes there, but if you ever go back to watch or come across it, do you have a lot of fond memories from that? Because like from what you're describing, it seems like everyone had a lot of fun working on that project there. And considering that you had mentioned before that no one was getting paid for that, so it's clearly obvious that you guys had, you all knew what the outcome was going to be, as far as like there's a possibility that could lead to somewhere, or it may not go anywhere. But when you look back at it now, after everything that has happened and to where you are with it now, do you have has your perspective changed a little bit as far as how you look at the project now, or do you still have retain a lot of those fond memories from what you experienced here, and however it turned out, that experience for you hasn't changed for you at all as far as how you and everyone else worked together and have been able to put out something that you guys are very proud of?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of it's just fond memories. I mean,
Okay.
I would say the only regret is that I kind of wish that I had known in 2014 what I know now.
Eh,
But it's I would say, yeah, all fond memories. I still keep in touch with everybody that was in the show. Um,
what exactly is it has changed for you that you know now that you didn't know back then that you probably would have done differently as far as like are you talking more like the actual writing process for the show or working on some things that you probably thought didn't work as well that you thought could have worked better? And I mean, what exactly do you mean by that?
yeah, all of the above. I wish that I just had a little bit better sense of the business side of it.
Okay.
To be honest,
Okay.
because I mean, all we really knew was how to do improv comedy. So that's really so we didn't have a really good strong understanding of the business at the time, which I wish that we had. But nonetheless, I mean, all fond memories. So if I ever come across one of those clips, it's always fun to see.
Do you? So here's a question I'm asking. I hope when I'm asking this here, I'm hoping it doesn't come up the wrong because because I'm really curious about how because back in those days the Office was a pretty well it still is pretty a rather big show. So was there any concern for you and everyone else involved that when you guys were putting the show together, that it had some of the same aesthetics with that people have seen with The Office? That did you feel that if we do this here, we have to obviously add our own flavor to it, but was there any hesitation about, but if we do it like this, people are going to think that we're more or less copying The Office or something of that sort that has been well received, that has garnered a lot of has garnered a huge fan base. Like, was there any little concern about that people may look at it in that respect before they actually look at the actual final cut as far as how the comedy works and how everyone was working together and how everything turned out for it to be as funny as it is? Like, is there a little concern for that along the way?
Somewhat. I mean,
Okay.
I would say that we're all, I don't. Well, I can't talk for everybody. I
Right.
would say that even at the time, I was a fan of The Office
Right.
as well as several other sitcoms. Um, I don't think it was ever a concern because we were definitely doing our own.
Right.
Ours was ours was a comedy in that it was a workplace comedy, just like The
Right.
Office. But I think a lot of different dynamics, being that it was, a sales floor and it was, like retail based, and
Right.
I don't know,
Like
it,
heightened
it had
reality
a lot
pretty
of
much.
similarities, and I was probably influenced a lot by The Office.
Right.
But I don't think that we were ever worried about it because we were trying to just kind of tell our own story.
Right. When you think about how things have changed from when you had come up with the show and everyone working together now and how things have changed, are you more prepared now to, if like for example, like if something else were to come along the line for you where you decide I have an idea for a show, now that I know how to do this here a little bit better now, um I'm going to take possibly elements of what we've done with retail to add to this new idea. So that way we knew whatever worked with retail can actually work with this potential project that we could hopefully get off the ground here. Anything like that that comes to mind for you as how things has moved along the way?
I think what I have learned is don't try to do a show.
Why is that?
So I did another. Well, I helped produce another pilot a few years back called Memphis Fire.
Yeah, I was trying to find that online somewhere. I couldn't get a hold of it here.
You won't be able to see much of it
Okay.
other than some clips here and there.
Right.
So we did it with a
David
few
Arquette.
actors that are
Yeah.
pretty well known, yeah.
Yeah.
And shopped it around, and really what I learned is that um, without already having it in with the network or without already having a showrunner attached, you're just kind of spinning your wheels. So
Mm.
it's I've had a couple of friends that have gotten shows picked up, and you know series is probably the hardest thing to get made.
More so than a
You're
movie?
much more so than a movie.
In what way?
Because a movie you can make it and get a distributor to sell it. You know, um, there's a road, there's like a path to make that happen.
Okay, I see what you're
If
saying.
you make a movie and you make a good movie, it'll sell. Somebody will pick it up. A distributor will sell it, whatever, or a sales agent will sell it.
Mm.
There's lots of different avenues that you can travel with a movie. But a TV show, if you don't have an in with the network or you don't have a showrunner that already has a good track record, it's never going to make it to air. It's never going to make it to the network at all. So,
so what was
so
it
there's,
about Memphis Fire that didn't get picked up? If you don't mind sharing that, like what was it about? I mean, because obviously you guys have a lot of confidence in what you guys were doing here, but what was the general consensus from the people that you were trying to show the show that they said what wasn't going to work, or whatever the reasons may be? What was the common answer for that?
we didn't have a showrunner attached.
That was the only reason. So describe to me what you mean by showrunner, because in my mind, because I understand enough of it, but I don't think I have a full comprehension behind it. Because a showrunner to me, from what I understand, is someone that is more or less is going to be writing the show and going to be guiding the show. So basically, an executive producer is what I'm understanding. But
Mm-hmm.
even if you have, like for example, like if you or David Arquette were going to be running the show, that wasn't going to be enough for them to be enticed to say, you know what, I think, given we know most people who know David Arquette may want to consider checking out the show because he has produced other shows that have been pretty successful. Because I know he did one with Courtney Cox a while back. I forget what it was called. Dirt. I think it was called The Dirt, if I'm not mistaken, and a few other ones as well too. So even with his track record, that wasn't enough to entice him, say you could be the potential showrunner for you to be able to carry on with the
show. So he came and did the show as an actor.
Okay.
But he was not producing or show running. So
okay.
It may have been a different story. I'm not 100% sure. But and again, I'm not placing blame anywhere. Right. He came and he did an excellent job, and he did exactly what we wanted him to do. I mean, and P.S. just as a side note, he is an amazing person to work with.
I've heard good things about
everybody on set, cast crew, everybody loved him. So funny, so talented, so just like, and then an amazing person. Like after the shoot was over, he went and like bought cupcakes for the cast and crew and came back. Like he's just like the nicest human ever. Like I can't say enough nice things about him. But back to Memphis Fire, the one of the other networks, and I won't say what network it is, but I had been talking to some of the producers at the network, and so this is a network that has a lot of their own showrunners that are like in-house that they work with all the time.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so the problem is that while I was doing my pilot, I didn't realize, and they didn't realize, that they were also developing a comedy firefighter show. So when it was time to deliver the pilot, they were like, "Oh, we already have a firefighter show that we're doing." And I was like, "Oh, that is the absolute worst luck ever." So the one network that I had been talking to about doing a show already had one. So that was
is that a long, arduous process to have to go through those sit downs and pitch the show, or is it kind of like more or less like a shortened process where have a meeting, present the idea to them, and then they'll say yes or no on the spot there? Is it a little bit more elongated than that?
No, it's a very, very long process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, very, very long. Yeah, I mean, Memphis Fire was about 2 years in the making.
And that's after the pilot had been shot, right? Or is that
no, about 2 years in the making from beginning to.
Oh, really?
To
okay.
pilot. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So this leads me to want to ask you a question about this, because I know, I understand that everyone has a reason for why they want to do what they do. In this case, because I know you're a comedian as well, which I've actually checked out your stand-up on your YouTube channel here, for anyone who doesn't know that you are a comedian as well, which I actually thought were pretty funny. So, but we'll get into that in a little bit here. But I'm actually curious about hearing your story about how, you had intentions of wanting to create something for it to be picked up, and therefore you guys can continue on with the ideas you've had, and then eventually move on to other things to keep expanding on your arsenal, if you will. But having to deal with the major setbacks where you have an idea, it's good, and then someone says, "Oh, by the way, we already have a show like this here. Thanks, but no thanks." So despite that, because for me, I've had plenty of conversation with Brett and other people as well too in the industry that have always have a story to tell, that there is always going to be a door that's going to be closing on you, despite what you're capable of pulling off here, because there's a lot of politics behind this, which as everyone who understands the industry knows that. But But the one thing I'm always curious to hear about is the individual story where when it comes to having to see those doors being closed on them and being told no all the time. And that can actually break down a lot of people as far as like them not want to continue on that path because it's a very, very difficult path to pursue. So for you, despite having gone through that, did you ever at any point feel like I just don't know if I want to do this anymore because it's just too time consuming and I'm not getting anything coming back to me as far as, monetary rewards or whatever the case may be. But clearly you guys you're still sticking with this career path here, but I'm curious if it's at certain points, even though you're doing, I'm assuming that you love what you do you feel like just giving up and say enough is enough, or taking a break and say, oh, let me rethink about how I'm doing this here now, and then I'm come back and revisit here to continue on with another path here that will be more fitting for what I would prefer to do. In this case, like saying creating your own content, if you will, um, in another route rather than the standard route most people tend to think would be the best way to go about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the last couple of years really I've done just that.
Mm,
Because since the Memphis Fire thing in 2016, 17,
mm,
and I really saw the, like you say, the political side of it, and
mm,
the business side of it. Which, by the way, for a very short time, I was with one of the biggest agencies in town, and I had some very big people behind me that were super excited, and then when Memphis Fire didn't happen, then all of a sudden they had new assistants and different phone numbers, and
yeah,
you
I've
know how
heard
that
those stories.
goes.
Yeah, I heard those stories. Yeah.
So um so so yes, there was a time where I was like, I'm going to change the direction. And so what I've done is exactly that, is change the direction and just get away from the series, get away from the shows. Don't even, I've just decided not to even put effort and energy into that, because I can help people get movies made. And, you know, like I say, there's a direct path to getting a movie made, selling it, getting it out.
Mm.
So I think that that's kind of more my focus now, is just, obviously I'm still acting, but also still, trying to do the producing side of it, but just more for movies instead of series.
Do you actually
So I think
prefer
that,
that more now that you're doing it more consistently, or
yeah.
is it just more like a process? Like I'm just gonna do it until I can find something else for me to do that I would prefer pursuing here.
No, I think I actually prefer doing the movies now, because one, it's a little bit more instant gratification.
Okay.
Two, you can still tell the stories that you want to tell, or tell the stories that your friends want to tell, or whomever.
Hmm.
So it's still the same creative process of telling the stories. Um, and I think that the process is the same, but the payout's better, because you're more likely to do something with the movie than, unfortunately, something like Memphis Fire that we loved and we were very proud of, that's just going to sit on the shelf for eternity.
So I'm curious to ask this here for you because since you're more in the path of like creating content for yourself and other people that you're working with here and helping other people along the way too, I would imagine that I'm not sure because I only know what Brett tells me and a few other writer and directors that I've come across, actors as well too, that get some insight about that. It is a difficult process to get some of that stuff made, and even if you have a film made and have people to agree with you and say, okay, we like what you've done and we're going to go ahead and release it, but there are going to be some changes along the way that have to be made because of X, Y, and Z. Like a big example was Bull Shark, where Jeff was telling me that it was because of the original name Blood in the Water wouldn't work in some respective markets, so you have to change the title altogether. I'm not sure if editing had to be was another factor where they said you have to cut some stuff out. I'm not sure if that was the case here, but I understand that it happens a lot with a lot of films that are made independently and then sold, and then they're drastically changed before they get released to the public.
Hmm.
So for you, going through that process and then seeing how that machine works, do you feel do you feel now that it's gotten better in that respect to make movies more or less on your terms, and then seeing what the demands are and having to adjust to that, where maybe you might not consider making a movie of a particular genre, but because there's more accessibility for you to get a film made and then be seen as a result of those films being made, that you may uh you may reconsider how you want to approach that story or whatever the case may be. But do you also feel like there's an oversaturation of that? Because I would imagine now there's a lot more people now trying to get their film made and get it out there. And there's just an oversaturation of these distributors that are looking at every single film, but not actually watching the movie. And they're just going off the storylines and then some other pitches here and there for them to be interested to even want to consider distributing to then to actually have a distributor. I know it's a long question, but it's that process to me of how I understand it, it's very, very tedious. So I'm curious how it's like for you, how you perceive that now.
So I would say that first, that there's a movie that's written, and then there's a movie that's edited, and then there's a movie that's shown. So the movie that you see is not usually the exact movie that was written. Right. And that's just the nature of, because you've got your writer is going to change stuff, your director is going to change stuff, then the distributor is going to change stuff. So your end product is never going to be the original script. And you just have to know that and be okay with it.
Right.
And so, the hardest thing is if you ever have a writer on set, they're going to argue with the director. They're going to be unhappy with the way things are being said. It's just not a good idea to have a writer on set. Like, it's just because it's unfortunate, but like they have their vision and then the director has their vision and they're both right. So, that is what it is.
I heard a story. I don't mean to cut you off, but there's a story that I heard from Quentin Tarantino because I'm a big fan of the movie True Romance, and I was listening to the commentary of that film, and the one thing that he said that I distinctly remember, that I'm not going to say that I agree with him, but I understand why he does that, is because because we're on the topic about the writers talking with the directors about how they would see the film. He was saying that when he wrote True Romance, he gave it to Tony Scott, and Tony Scott did what he did with the film, and it turned out beautiful. But the one thing that he had changed was the structure of the film, because Quentin has all this beginnings, the end, and so on. And then he changed the ending altogether. And Quentin said, I never visited the set to shoot to see how they're shooting the film, because I felt like at that point I've done my job and they've taken the script and they're going to do their thing. So let them do what they want. But until I heard what they were going to do with the ending, which I loved, that's when I reached out and said, do not change the ending. That ending is perfect. You had the same ending. You had a similar ending to Revenge, which I loved. Why would you change anything here? And Tony Scott told his story as far as why, and then agreed to shoot two endings and kept the one he preferred. And then when Quentin saw, he's like, okay, now it makes sense, because this is Tony's film, not my film anymore. So now it's all his vision, what he thought worked best, and it was even way better than I anticipated. Yeah. So I understand that process, but I can't imagine how hard it is for someone to say, do whatever you want with it, because Quentin Tarantino had another completely different experience when he wrote Natural Born Killers, and Oliver Stone completely changed everything, and it made his story. And Quentin was like, I don't want nothing to do with that film. I think so, I recall correctly. So for you, seeing that for yourself and having to deal with that sort of stuff with the production side of it, and then having to deal with all the business aspect of it too, with selling the film, which is for you, at least in your experience, the hardest? That in handling that side of the industry, or that side of the business, or having to deal with the creative heads trying to get their ideas out and then clashing during that process?
The creative heads are always the most difficult.
Okay.
Because, and it's for a good reason,
right.
Because they are creative and they're good at what they do because they're passionate about it. But when they're passionate about it and they're both passionate about opposite things, that's when everybody has to learn to meet in the middle. So the best thing is that you've got these people who have these great visions and these great passions, but then it's hard for them to want to do anything else, because they want to do what they're, what they feel is right and what they feel passionate about. So it's a good and bad, I would assume that your biggest directors are, your most passionate, but also probably speak with the writers, less. I mean, because they have their vision. I would assume they probably have their meetings, and then, just like Quentin said, like once you hand it over to the director, then it's his film now.
Right.
You did your job. You laid the groundwork. Do
you agree with that notion of like having to? Because I do agree with your point of view as well, because it's kind of like it's kind of a gray area for, I think, for a lot of people, which I don't think people understand on how that would actually work. But Do you feel though as if that with having to have the creative heads on the set like that conversing and having the ideas, do you think that delays the process, or is it better to have one figurehead to make the final decision to let to
Well, I
decide the
mean,
direction of the story?
you definitely have one person that's making the decisions
Okay.
for sure. So you have to have one person that's in charge 100%. But at the same time, I would say that it depends production to production, like,
Mm,
wait,
it's all good.
I would say it depends on the production.
Okay.
But my answer would be you definitely have to have one person at the end who makes the decisions, who's going to be the end of the road.
Gotcha. All right. So now for you though, I'm not sure if you've had prior experience before in having to deal with like the distribution and having the deliveries, if I recall how it's pronounced, how it's described here, where you have to
Mhm.
have all the paperwork and all the stuff that goes with having the film be sold and have it distributed. Um, having experienced that for the first time for yourself, I'm not sure if you had someone give you advice about what to be expecting with, leading up to having to have those deliveries sent out to distributors, or was it all completely new to you and then having to learn it from scratch and then having to deal with it along the way as you continue on with that whole process there? What was that like for you the first time around having to deal with that?
I mean, yeah. So the first time I had no idea about deliverables, but I mean, this is, I don't know, so long ago that deliverables are different now,
Hmm.
because everything's digital. Um, but yeah, the first time I had no idea about deliverables. All I knew about was, you know, the the physical making of the film.
Hmm.
And so, you know, I would say that you always just surround yourself with good people and you find people that do know what they're doing, and
Yeah.
they'll take care of you. Basically, hire the right people, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Do you think that
Um,
process deters a lot of people from wanting to continue on? Because again, this is I've talked to a lot of people before about this, that people who are coming into the industry and having to figure it out the hard way about how the industry works in that respect, they have no idea what to be expecting, having to deal with all that. So for you, like again, when you're dealing with that, did you feel overwhelmed, or were you kind of discouraged, like I can't be doing this shit anymore, this is too much, and I just want to make the film and get it out there? Like, was there a little bit of that for you along the way?
yeah, for sure, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's even still that now. I mean, even I've done several now, and even now it's still like
Pain.
a, a very taxing process.
Yeah.
The the hardest part, I think, a lot of times is the communication for different team members. You know,
Yeah.
because you've got one guy editing, one guy doing sound, one guy doing effects, and so everybody's always kind of waiting on the next person to finish their part so they can do their part.
Yeah.
And the scheduling is what's the most difficult, I would say.
Interesting.
um, because the deliverables, if you've got your editor can just send you the deliverables based on whatever your distributor wants, and it's um, it's usually the same. Everybody wants the same deliverables. So once you know what you need, um, it's not like it changes.
Okay. So here's what I'm wondering for you now, because I understand that you are part of the I'm not sure if you're able to talk about this here, so I'm just going to ask, and you let me know if it's okay to continue with this. But um the following, that's a film that I believe that you are a part of in the producing aspect of it too. Is that correct?
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so with that film, because I know you were Brett directed the movie, and B22 is helping produce the film as well too, and handling other areas as well, from what I understand. Um, so having done Bull Shark and then moving into the following, um, I'm not sure if the intention down at some point, having worked with Brett and everyone else on B22 in Bull Shark, was that did you guys discuss then? Hey, I have an idea for I think he said there was a writer that came up with a story. We have an idea for this film, and we think you'd be a good fit for you to help out and then help to get this movie made, and then for you to possibly direct it as well too. So what was that process in getting that started that led to the production there?
Yeah. So we all had a great time making Bull Shark together, and we all got along very well.
Right.
I liked him. I like him and his whole team. And so, yeah, we were just talking about after that was over, we were like, hey, let's do something else. Because everybody's always talking about like, what's, on to the next one, what are we doing next? And so we started talking about like, hey, what are we going to do next? And there were several projects on his side and on my side, both that we were looking at. Some of them had budgetary restraints, some of them had location restraints, some of them had other problems. And we just kind of landed on the follower to do next, because it seemed like everything was just kind of falling in place. And it's so funny, every time I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day, whatever movie you think you're going to make next, you're probably not. And then all of a sudden, the universe is going to be like, no, this is what you're doing next. And so you just always kind of perpetually try to move forward, and then stuff starts falling into place for one project. And then, one thing will fall in place, and the next thing, and the next thing. And you're like, oh, well, now we're in production. And that's honestly how it usually happens.
Right.
It's so funny, you try to get 12 movies made, and the 3 that you think are going to happen, nothing ever happens. And then 2 that you didn't think were going to happen are the ones that end up in production next week, so that's just kind of how it works.
That's just the nature of the beast. Yeah. Well, so with that movie though, because I mean, I understand it's kind of more or less of a thriller. And I'm not asking to reveal, because I know some things are going to have to be on the hush here. But with that movie though, so shooting that movie, when you guys were working on the film, did you? I'm trying to see how I can ask this here. So shooting Bull Shark, everyone knew what the film was going to be. Same with The Follower, but shooting The Follower, because it's a genre that more or less that B-22 isn't necessarily known for. Did you notice, at least for yourself and anyone else that you may have spoken with on the set, that you realize that, what, this is actually going to be something completely different that's going to change a lot for everybody here, because we're taking on a new type of story here that in this case B-22 isn't necessarily known for, and having the new blood injected into this here, where you guys are coming in with the story and then having Brett more or less guide the ship, if you will. Did you feel like there was something that you guys had work that you were working on, that you were putting together here, that you felt like this could actually be really, really good? And then we think, as you guys saw the dailies, that this is going to turn out amazing? Or was a little concerned that, I don't know, maybe we're still need to tweak some things on the way that we should probably work on a little bit more? Maybe we can try to change this a little bit here, because, it's still new to us here in that respect. I hope that question makes sense, and hopefully you understand where I'm coming from.
I think really because we were all on the same page, because we had a lot of discussions prior. I think really we all had a good feeling about it from the beginning. And then when we did start seeing dailies and we start seeing some shots, and we felt even better about it. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is going to work out. Especially just because everybody that was involved was so excited to do it, cast and crew.
Right.
And so I would say that it was probably one of the funner sets. I mean, everybody just was really excited to be doing it, so
right.
And everybody had the same vision. Everybody was on the same page, so it felt like everybody was kind of pushing the boat in the same direction.
Interesting.
If that makes sense.
I see where you're coming from with that here. So so with this movie here, I know that's still in the works right now. Everything's being put together here in the post-production here, but are you able to comment about when you guys are expecting to have the film released later this year, or is that still in the works as far as having that finalized?
So we have the cut done. It's edited.
Okay.
Right now we are in the process of adding the sound score.
Okay.
So sound score and special effects are going in now. That'll be the last kind of piece of it. So it will be ready to deliver within probably the next month.
Oh, really? So it delivers in like possibly released to the public?
No, it'll be delivered to the distributors.
Oh, okay. I got you.
And so then, once they get it, usually I would say probably 4 months. So it should be out by the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully.
That's a long way to go.
Yeah. So when if we finish and we deliver in May, maybe September, October.
I got you. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Mhm.
All right. So here's what I want to jump into next year with you about something else I've come across, which I touched on before. The fact that you're a comedian here. I'm not sure now because I looked up on your YouTube channel and I think the last video that I saw you had posted was a stand up set that you had from a few years ago. So I'm not sure if you're still pursuing comedy now, or is that kind of more on the wayside for you to focus on other areas as far as the productions are concerned that you're working on here.
Yeah, I was pursuing it pretty hard for a while there,
Right.
and got lucky and got to do some big shows with some great people. Um, but I just for lack of, I guess. Well, so here's what really happened.
Okay.
COVID happened,
All right.
and all the comedy clubs shut down, and it got so difficult to do any comedy, and people started doing like online comedy, and
Yeah.
I felt like I enjoyed doing other things more. Like I love doing stand-up comedy, and I love connecting with a crowd of people, and there's really instant gratification when you tell a joke and a room full of people laugh. It's, I mean, the best feeling in the world. But it became harder and harder and harder to have access to do that, especially when COVID happened.
Right.
And when that happened for the last couple of years, I just changed directions so hard that now I don't really have time for it anymore. And also I have newborn, I have 1-year-old babies.
Yeah.
So
I can hear them in the
also with
background.
1-year-old babies, it's very difficult to
Yeah.
go do a comedy show at 11 o'clock on Thursday night. So that has changed a lot. I do still have a great love for stand-up comedy, and I love going to shows and watching people. And that's not to say that I'll never do it again, but it's just definitely not a focus at this point anymore, because there's several other things, and also not really anybody knows this, but stand-up comedians don't make any money. So
It's kind of what I've heard too. Yeah.
so that there have been times that I've done shows, and some of the biggest rooms in Los Angeles that were sold out, and you've got 1,000 people in there, and you go and you do it, and it's great, it's a good feeling, but you made $0 and you spent $50 at the bar. So so it's not a good way to make money. It's just, again, it's just a labor of love.
But I mean, you said before that you plan on going back there. So if everything were to go well for you in terms of like you've got certain projects along the way that more maybe now you can probably delegate to other people to kind of handle those responsibilities that you would normally handle. Would you reconsider like now that I have some leeway here for me to be able to take an afternoon to try a set, or maybe an evening where where my kids are at home, the wife's at home, and and she can handle it, and I can go to do a set for an hour or two, and then come on back home. You consider doing something like that if the possibility were to warrant that?
Possibly. Sorry, my
Hello.
my little one right here. Well, one of my little ones. I would, but the one thing about the stand-up comedy is that there's so much more that goes into it than just like writing your set and telling your jokes.
Yeah.
You also have like the 2 weeks prior to the show is like all the PR, all of the there's so much that you have to do prior to the show.
When you said PR, what do you mean by that?
Like you've got to make sure that people know that you're doing a show. You've got to make sure that people are coming. You got to make sure that that so there's so much marketing and PR that goes into like 2 weeks prior to a show, unless you just want to do like one of the clubs on Sunset on Friday night. You just go drop in for
open mics.
Yeah, which I mean those are fun and all, but you never know really what you're gonna get also, so whereas if you plan ahead and you do a show and you know that there are gonna be some other great comedians there, then it's just better for everybody involved. It's better for the people that are coming to the show. It's better for the comedians. It's better for the club itself. So it's there's a lot of work that goes into a show a few weeks prior to it actually happening.
So you think that's more work than the actual show itself for you to do the
Oh, it's so
stand-up?
much more work than the actual show itself. Yeah. The show itself is great. You go there, you get up on stage, you tell some jokes, you know, you have a great time. But the 2 weeks prior is a lot of marketing and PR.
Is it easy for you to write a set for yourself where, you know, you, because I imagine that you're constantly thinking of something, writing a set down, testing it out. Is that part easier for you, or is that more difficult? And let's say in the case of like compared to filmmaking here, where it's structured and there are layers, but for joke writing or for stand-up writing, I meant to say that is a whole different process. I'm not sure if that's easy or difficult for you to pursue. I mean, for you to have to work out.
I like joke writing better than anything.
Okay.
So I would. Hey, can you say hello? Can you say hi?
Hi.
Can you say hi? I would prefer to write a stand-up set than anything else. I mean,
okay.
So if I had my options, okay, she's gonna go back to mom.
Bye.
I would prefer to write a set than anything, but again, it's, you know, a lot of times you can collaborate with other people to write a script, and you can give them ideas. They can send it to you. You know, you do your edits at night or whatever, you know, whatever the case may be. A lot of times, like I told you, when the babies go to bed, I write for a few hours or whatever. But it's definitely more enjoyable for me to write jokes, but less financially responsible. So a lot of times here lately, we've really just and I have a few writing partners, we've really just changed our focus to the scripts. And you know, a lot of times this kind of touches on what you were saying earlier. A lot of times the scripts that you're writing are what the distributors are looking for. You know, like, you know, horror films are always good, action films are always good. There for a while, westerns were good. I don't know if they still are. But you know, we have a few films that we would really love to do that are comedies, but the problem is that comedy doesn't sell very well overseas because people don't understand the American sense of humor. You know, you might sell like the UK, you might sell maybe France, but like Asia, you know, the comedies just don't sell over there. So if you're going to make a film that you want to sell all over the world, the best thing to do is action or horror, because those films, like a slasher film, everybody all over the world will watch it. You know, even with subtitles, it doesn't matter because it's just about some person that's a killer that's killing people. You know, or an action film, it's about some people running and jumping off a building, you know, like and stuff blowing up. So you know, people don't mind reading the subtitles on those, but reading the subtitles on a comedy that you don't understand the humor is just not going to do well.
You know, I actually saw a clip of Michael Jai White's what was it, a Black Dynamite, where he, you know, that film is comedy, you know, and it's obviously riffing off of the blaxploitation films, but the clip that I saw online was it was literally him still speaking English, but all the subtitles were in Chinese, and it's just massive. And I was like, how do you translate all the jive, you know, in this case of the jive talk that he had in the movie into Cantonese or Mandarin? I'm like, how are they seeing this here? And how was he able to get to have that film sent out? A lot of it, I'm sure, has to do with the fact that he is pretty popular over in China because, you know, he's made a lot of action films. So therefore his name alone more likely would warrant for that film to be released over there. But again, considering the context of it, I see your point. I never put a lot of thought into it now that I think about it. But okay. So here's what I'm curious about with you now, when it comes to you acting on the film. So for example, like with Bull Shark, you know, because I'm actually kind of curious. So I'm going to take a little side step here because I know that if I read correctly, you were born in Arkansas, and then you were, I think by the time you were a teenager, you guys had moved to Tennessee. So even now when I hear you talk, you still have a bit of a Southern accent. But
yes,
when you are, so for example, when you were doing Bull Shark, I'm curious because Texas has a very distinct accent. So if Brett or whoever you're working with say, hey, we need you to be a Southerner, but you need to put on a Texan accent. Is that something that's easy for you to do to be able to go from an Arkansas accent to a Texas accent or a specific type of Texas accent for you to be able to fit within the community where the film is based in here? So I'm not sure for someone who's a Southerner that can put on an accent that they're obviously born where they were born and raised in, but to switch it to another region, is that difficult for yourself to be able to pull that off?
Um, that's a good question actually, because Alabama, their accent is very different than Texas.
Oh, I thought you were from Arkansas. Oh, there's Alabama.
Well, so I'll get there. So,
Okay.
so I spent a lot of time in Alabama. Like I went to college there,
Oh,
and I
okay,
spent a
okay,
lot of time in Tennessee. I spent a lot of time in Chattanooga.
okay,
And so, you know, the Arkansas accent and the Texas accent are pretty close.
okay.
Um, I call it the Texarkana. So
I've
they're
heard of
pretty
that
close.
before. Oh yeah.
Then there are definitely variations. Like so,
Right.
I would say like Alabama, Mississippi, they have a little bit slower speech pattern.
Okay.
And then Tennessee has a little bit. It's hard to explain. A little bit higher range.
Okay.
Uh, and the words, so like a Tennessee accent is still a Southern drawl, but the
Right.
words have a different pronunciation. Honestly, it's like they pronounce the full word, whereas like in Alabama, Arkansas, Texas, they don't always pronounce the full word. If that
Mm.
makes any sense.
I understand where you're going with it. Yeah.
And so it's that's a good question, because even though people are like, oh, can you do a Southern accent? And if you're from the South, you're like, well, a Southern accent from where? Like,
Right.
because
Yeah.
Texas is very different than Tennessee.
Right.
So to answer your question, yeah, it's pretty easy to change if you know what you're looking for.
Okay.
And if I mean, because I've lived in all those places,
Right.
it's easy to, like, I can usually hear somebody and tell you where they're from.
Are you able to put on are you if someone is asking you we need you to put on an accent but not a Southern accent, we need to put more like in this case let's say a more like a standardized American accent, are you able to do that fairly easily or is that difficult for you to transition from Southern to more or less like the standard Americanized accent?
It's more difficult. I can,
Okay.
but it's more difficult. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Um, it it's something that can be done is if you have a little bit of time to prepare, and it's really
Right.
just preparing the lines, and there's a few words that you have to change, like because we draw out a lot of words.
Right.
So,
Yeah, 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 I know.
like the word "fine" is
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know
Yeah.
is very different. So yeah, so I can, but it is more difficult for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if given the opportunity though for yourself, because here's what I've always come across here with a lot of Southern actors. So the fact that I'm able to speak with you about this, I'm really curious for yourself because you hinted you've said that having to put on a more standardized American accent, can be a little bit difficult for you. Um, so if having to change that and then someone says, hey, we love what you have done with this a character you played having on this accent, which I didn't even realize you were from from Arkansas. We want you to put on, let's say, a New York accent now. Can you do that? Like when
No.
you if
Well,
well
yeah. I'm not going to say no, but it would be very difficult.
okay.
So like New York, Boston, Chicago,
Right.
those are very specialized accents,
Right.
that I really believe, unless you have spent time and lived there, it, you're not going to do it justice.
Okay. Okay.
So
So
I
do
wouldn't
you
even try. If somebody was like, "Can you be from Boston?" I would tell them I can mock a Boston accent, but it's not going to be good. It's not going to be genuine.
from your experience, so do you believe for like a lot of Southerners, actors, comedians, whenever they're having to put on an accent, another accent, from your experience and what you've seen, do you notice that it's they're not do they do it as well as someone who's more of with that native accent, or there's, you can clearly say, yeah, for some reason Southerners may not be successful to transition from the Southern accent to another accent or another regional accent in the country here. Like, because from my experience, it's very rare to have someone who has a thick Southern accent, wherever they may be, to transition from that accent to another type of accent, unless someone who's from the South, moved out from the South and lived in an area for a long period of time where they've lost it, but they are able to put it back on like that, and then able to transition from one accent to another because their mind has been able to transition in and out of that accent, if you will. So for yourself, someone who has an accent, still keeping the accent, and having to be able to having to change it to something else, have you noticed it's a lot difficult? It's difficult for other Southerners who have their accent to be able to transition from one to another without, without making with. I'm stuttering. So is it difficult for them from what you have experienced in the past from any actors or comedians, whoever it may be, that you've seen trying to do that?
Yeah, I think it's very individualized, because I have lots of friends who are Southern that are actors, and they cannot change their accent at all. Okay. And then I have lots of friends that are from the South that if they were doing a role from, that needed no accent at all, you would never know that they're from the South. So I think it's just individuals. Okay. I specifically am not the best.
You feel like you're more like in the middle if you would have to pull off?
Like if I had to pull it off, I could if I had time. But like I've got some friends that can just turn, and they just and so I think it's very individual. Like some people are really good at doing accents, and some people are not. There are some people that are from the North that can crush Southern accent, and then there's some people that are from the North that couldn't do an accent to save their life from the South. So it's like I think that it's probably some of the people who have put more effort and training into learning accents and dialects. So that is definitely a skill set that a lot of people put time and effort into. But I think it's a very, very individual, like some people are great at it and some people are not. I will tell you a lot of times that that we as Southerners see shows that people have Southern accents that are so bad.
I was gonna ask you about that.
And you have to wonder, like, I also wonder like people who are like from Chicago, because the shows Chicago Fire, Chicago Med, all those things, I have to wonder if people that are from Chicago feel the same way. Are they like, oh, those Chicago accents are terrible? Not to say anything bad about those shows, but I'm just saying like that's an example. Like I wonder if people from other places are also like, oh, they didn't do a good job on our accent,
For you,
because we definitely do,
What's the worst? What's the film that you saw where you saw an actor put on an accent that was, and you don't have to name names here, but maybe you can name the movie, but not say the actor if you don't want to. But where you saw an actor putting on a Southern accent, no matter where they're from in the South, that was just awful in your eyes.
Man, that's hard to think of right now. I can tell you one show that did a fantastic job of it was The Walking Dead.
Andrew Lincoln, I think, does a really good
did a
Tennessee
fantastic
accent.
job of it. One show that some of the actors were fantastic and some of the actors were awful, and there was kind of nothing in between, was True Blood.
Oh yeah. That Cajun accent. I forgot who was the actor that put on the that. I know.
Ryan Quanten was fantastic in that.
He was great.
I'm not sure if he's Southern or not, but his accent
he's Australian.
Oh, his accent was perfect.
Yeah.
So that's one show I'd say, like, some of them were so great, and then some of them were like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's a terrible accent.
Are you able, if someone asks you to do a Cajun accent, is that a Southern accent for you that would probably be difficult for you to pull off if you were asked to do so?
Cajun and Creole,
I think people do the worst.
Yeah, Cajun and Creole are difficult. That's doable, but they're definitely a specialized.
Yeah.
I would tell people if they needed somebody to be Creole to try to find somebody that's Creole.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I just wanted to ask you about with regards to acting for yourself, because I'm not sure for yourself if acting was something that you wanted to get into from the beginning, or if you were more inclined to follow through with a a career in stand-up comedy? Because um, I always figured that if you know, if an actor or if someone is in the industry, there has to be some sort of drive that led them to that path. So for yourself, was there a specific idea about how you want to go about pursuing in the career in the entertainment business, with either stand up, or was acting along that came along the way that you preferred, and then you've discovered stand up along the way, then you figured I prefer that one over this here, and then obviously we already know how things are for you right now. But what was your initial idea about how you want to go about this here?
Started first with acting,
Okay.
and then kind of got into the improv acting, and did an improv show one night, and
The same
one
one
of
that Will Ferrell and Melissa McCarthy performed. Is that the same one that I think you're talking about here? I forgot
the
the name of that
Groundlings.
location. Yeah, that's the one. Okay.
Yeah, the Groundlings. And
Yeah.
so did a show one night, and somebody came to me after the show and they were like, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing stand up?" And I was like, "No, not really." And they were like, "Well, you should." And so they were like, "Why don't you come to the club, Friday night, we'll hang out, talk about it." So I went and I did that. And they were like, "Just try to write a set, see if you can write a 3-minute set, blah, blah, blah." So then I did some research and some studying about how to write a set, because there's definitely a structure to it. And so wrote one, went back, put it up, and really enjoyed the connection with the audience.
Mhm.
And so it was never something that I had planned on doing or intended to do until I did it. And everybody says that whenever you try stand up, you either love it or hate it, and there's nothing in between.
Mhm.
So
Was that the case for
the
you?
first time I did it, I loved it. I was like, "Oh my God, this
Okay.
is the best thing ever."
Okay.
So that's it, kind of accidentally happened. If that answers the question, I think so.
That does answer the question, but I guess what I was trying to also lead into as well too, with regards to the acting. Well, sorry, with the stand up here is because so if since you were wanted to get into acting, and then you started doing some improv, someone had suggested you try stand up because you are really funny. Therefore, I think you'd be really good at it. And then when you tried it, you loved it. And
Hmm.
then when you started going back into with acting after you've had that first set and loved that experience, did anything change for you about how you looked at acting for yourself? Maybe you felt like, I like this, but I like this more, and I'd rather stick with this more, and then I'll do this on the side when I can. Like, did something for you change
Yeah.
along the way about how you went about it?
I think yes, I started trying to go more toward more comedy roles at the
Okay.
time,
Okay.
and was doing better actually, with the most of my TV credits are comedies.
Right.
So yeah, definitely, the stand up fed the comedy, and vice versa, for sure.
Do you feel like because a lot of people, and I agree with this too, that doing comedy, so comedy in general, as far as like TV shows or films are concerned, is much more difficult than it is for you to write a dramatic film, horror film, because there's a certain formula. And comedy in some ways has that too, but it's the thing is that it's very hard to get people to laugh because comedy is objective. You either will love some jokes and you may not like it, or you may like it the first time, may not like it the second time. So for your experience when you're writing a comedy set for yourself in terms of like say a script for a show, in this case, for say for real for retail, do you find that more difficult to structure a story with the comedy piece, or is it easier for you to do that because you found a comfort zone of what works for you and how you want to go about with the writing process?
It's easier because you kind of find your voice.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure, it's easier.
Do you think it's easier would you be able to go to write like a say a dramatic piece because you felt because you found a rhythm that works for you when you come with writing when you're writing a comedy story, as opposed to, for example, like a dramatic story? So do you think that's easier for you to do so, or is that more difficult to transition from this to that?
For me, the comedy's easier for me.
Okay. Do you prefer to do more comedy as opposed to, let's say, just a standard dramatic film or horror film, or do you just whatever works for you, whatever you feel like doing is your way of going about it?
Um, I like doing all of them, and for different reasons. Like
Okay.
they're just different. They're different flavors of cake. You know, I mean, all cake is good.
Right.
So
Okay. Okay. So I hope you can answer this here for me, because I'm curious about how the preparation for yourself. Do you, because I'm trying to ask this question specific because I don't want to make it sound generic, but I have something in mind that I'm curious about how you like to go about it. Where in preparing for a part, do you prefer to have uh, a time where to work with another actor? Say for if there's a scene you have to work with another actor reading the lines, and you prefer to have someone in the room with you to be able to feed off of them, to have an idea how the rhythm of that scene will go for you, or do you consider yourself as an actor that I'll read the script, I have it in mind, I'm just going to rehearse it, and then I know what the director wants, therefore I'm going to do it like that, and that works for me. So what's your method of preparation when it comes to going on set before the cameras start rolling?
So I think that you try to, well, for me, I try to prepare as much as possible, um, and know the character as well as possible. But whenever you get across from the other actor, you always feed off of them. So
Mhm.
I feel like it's always better and you learn more stuff about the character in the moment with the other actor. Because hopefully they did their homework also, and they're going to come with something that may be a surprise, and it's a, happy surprises and happy accidents that happen
Right.
along the way. And that's what really makes the art form more fun, is when you find somebody that you click with and that you can feed off of. I mean, especially like with improv, it's 100% necessary, but I feel like it's always better once you have the other person across from you.
Um, so I'm very appreciative that Brett had linked me up with you to speak with you, and I know it took a while for us to be able to get to this part here, to speak with each other, because as my intention is to find people that are doing something that I would come across that offer something that for me would be rather unique. And there's always something for, even though everyone's story is rather similar to some degree, but the person's personal story as far as how they are going through those journeys is really the part that I'm more interested in here, because the thing that I always find most fascinating is that how certain people will handle certain situations that everyone has gone through, but how they handle it differently because of the hurdles they have to overcome and the doors that have been closed and so on and so forth. So as much as I enjoy the things that they've been a part of here, whether it be music, films, TV shows, whatever the case may be, but I'm always curious about what led up to that, and then what changed, and then what ended up leading up to the next set of events that occurred, and then hopefully the opportunities that would arise for them to be able to continue on with their passion. So for you, on the other hand, I what I because I was able to pull up a lot of the films you've done here, and unfortunately I've only seen a handful of stuff because there's at certain times, certain days that I had available to watch them was very short. But what I have come across here, I've noticed that you're pretty much in the like right in the middle as far as like the properties you've worked on, and then the other projects you've worked on that I'm assuming that most people may not be aware of here. Like for example, like retail, I had to search that on your IMDb to find that. When I found it on YouTube, then I looked into it, I was like, this is actually really good. I'm wondering if that was going to lead into other opportunities. Obviously, you more or less told me from the beginning what ended up happening, and then your experiences in trying to get another show started here. Those stories to me are much more interesting because it teaches me a lot about who you are as a person and how you handle yourself under those circumstances here. So for you to share those stories here with me, I am genuinely happy to just have the time with you to be able to discuss with you about all that stuff, because I'm hoping that in time, what I really hope would happen is that 10 years from now, you're at a position where you feel happy with how things are going for you, whether you're still in the industry or not, but you're happy with yourself, and that one day someone will come up to you, because I've said this before with everybody, but I do mean it every time. Someone will say, "I've came across this one interview, and this is where what you said at this time about how you felt about certain things with regards to the industry, what your experiences were. Um, do you still feel the same way about it now?" And then I'm
Mm.
hoping at that point that would be something that you would be able to look back on, hopefully with fond memories, but also in a position where you are at that time, at that point, I meant to say, where you have found something that has been consistently working well for you, wherever that may be. So I know it's kind of a long outro here for me to tell you here, but that's what I was hoping to learn here from you, because every story is different, and some obviously are more unique than others. But to me, the journey is really the most important one, not necessarily the actual product in itself, if that makes any sense. So, if anything, I want to say thank you for giving me your time to speak with me
Oh
about
yeah,
this
thank
here, to
you.
share these stories here with me. Um, I know we kind of touched before about the follower here, but I'm not sure if there's anything else that you may want to uh, tell anyone who'll be watching and listening that maybe in a lookout for anything you have coming down the pipeline that you are able to share with here as far as what to be expecting down the line for yourself.
Um, Couple more films coming out. One hopefully will come out this year. It's called Silent Life. It's about Rudolph Valentino. So it's in post production right now.
Okay.
It's been a labor of love as well. And so I think it's going to come out really good. So hopefully that'll be out this year. It's called Silent Life. It's actually got an actress by the name of Terry Moore in it.
Heard her name before.
Yeah,
Not sure
so
what she's been in though.
she's like old school Hollywood, and she's just great. She's
Okay.
fantastic. She's got lots of good stories. But so that was a lot of fun. That one's coming out. Hopefully, like I said, The Follower, and then Brett and I are hopefully going to be doing another one in May that he'll start putting some stuff out about soon.
Interesting. All right. Well, listen. So I guess for the closing here, I'm going to say thank you so much for again giving me your time here, because this is something that I was looking forward to hear and to. I'm just curious to hear what everyone's stories in their journey here. But I'm hoping that we can do this again somewhere down the line here. And now that we've got past more or less the formalities here, we can certainly have another conversation to touch upon other things as well too. So for the camera, I'm just going to say thank you again for giving the time, and until next time.
Thank you for having me. Of course,
Likewise.
appreciate it.